A very good afternoon to you. It is almost 12:30 in the afternoon. It is a beautiful day right here and I am Jamie, of course. This is the Chat Trap where we give you the best of conversation to make sure that you are uplifted and that you are aware of every single thing that is going on in society. Now, with that being said, as I told you before, we have a very interesting topic to talk about today, and that is social media. Does social media do more harm than good? Now, before we find the answer to this question, I want to remind you very gently to download our app because you can take us with you wherever that you go. It's super simple. You can have a good time with us. You can take us with you, and it's available absolutely free of charge on iOS and Android. So make sure that you do download our app on your phone right now, and you can have us with you wherever that you go. With that being said, let's go on to the topic of discussion today, which is social media actually good for you? Now, let's be real. I feel like every single one of us, especially with the given situation, we have some sort of social media platform on our phones. We are so used to using social media platforms. And according to statistics, apparently, the United Kingdom was home to 53 million active users, social media users rather, as of January 2021. That translated to a social media penetration rate of a 77.9% of the population of the UK. That is 77.9% of the entire population in the UK utilizes some sort of social media. Now, understanding that so many people utilize social media, that so many people, use these online platforms, it is very important that we do have conversations about how to use social media properly. Because let's be real, even the best thing in the world, if you do too much of it, it can have negative effects. No matter how good something is, it can be used in a way to reap negative effects. So, one thing that I do want to talk to you about is firstly, what kind of negative effects that we can gain through social media. And secondly, I also want to teach you or give you some tips and advice on what you can do to essentially ensure that you only reap the positive side of social media. Now, first of all, see, like I told you, a lot of people in the world are using social media, right? And with social media playing such a big part in our lives, could we be sacrificing our mental health and well being as well as our time? And what does the evidence actually suggest? Now, okay, I know this is going to come as a surprise, but social media is actually relatively new to us. And I tried to find a lot of articles and a lot of substantive research, but I feel like just because social media is quite relatively new to us, conclusive findings are quite limited. Now, the research that does exist mainly relies on, say, self reporting, which can often be flawed. But at the end of the day, what we see is that a lot of people or a majority of the social media users are not wise enough to use social media in order to reap only benefits. Thus, there are a lot of negative effects or negative consequences of using social media. And I want to share those with you before I move on to, giving you some tips on how to use social media properly. Now, first of all, obviously, when we use social media, we vent about things. We vent about everything from customer service to politics. And the downside to this is that our feeds often resemble an endless stream of stress. Now, in 2018, if I'm not mistaken, researchers at Pew Research Center based in Washington, D.C., sought to find out if social media induces more stress than it relieves. Now, in the survey, there were about 1,800 people. Women reported being more stressed than men. Twitter was found out to be a significant contributor because it increased their awareness of other people's stress, which added on to the daily stress of a human being. Now, that exactly is a situational example that is of course an example that is out there. But if you think about it, a lot of the times, especially when we do scroll Twitter, when we do look at social media, we are faced with a lot of negative news, right? And that I feel like, well, we will be talking about doom scrolling. It's called doom scrolling. If you don't know what doom scrolling is, that's when you find gratification from finding out a lot of negative news, and you keep scrolling and scrolling and scrolling till your feed is completely taken over by negative news and a lot of negativity that is happening in the world. Now, that I feel like every single one of us had to go through, especially with the COVID-19 pandemic in the beginning of 2020, that is last year. But see, when you do use social media and when you're constantly dependent on a social platform and on an online platform to brighten your mood, it can actually induce so much more stress because you see other people's stress stories on places like Twitter. You see real world events of what is going on in the real world, and it's not always positive. And when you do see these negative news and negative articles, you tend to be affected, and that is going to subsequently affect in increasing your stress levels. Second thing, mood. Now, there was this research article that I read recently, and apparently, researchers found out that participants in this particular research reported lower moods after using Facebook for 20 minutes compared to those who just browsed the internet. Okay, the study suggested that people felt that way because they saw it as a waste of time. Now, a good mood or a bad mood may also spread between people on social media. And people who assess the emotional content of over a billion status updates from more than 100 million Facebook users between 2009 and 2012 say that using social media has actually affected in a negative mood and how they view the world. Thirdly, rather, anxiety. Now, if you are somebody that is tends to get anxious, well then I feel like we kind of tend to utilize social media to hide our anxiety, because a lot of us are getting more comfortable on meeting people online rather than meeting people face to face. Because I've heard a lot of colleagues say, "Oh, I'd much rather meet somebody and talk to somebody via an online platform, via a digital platform, than actually meet the person face to face, because that increases my anxiety levels, that increases my stress levels." But see, the truth of it is, I guess for that moment in time, it feels so much better. It feels so much less nerve wracking to meet somebody on an online platform where you can decipher what you'll say before you actually meet them face to face. But see, the truth about it is that if you are a person that's anyway anxious in a social gathering, if you're a person that anyway feels stressed out, feels nervous when you speak to people face to face, you're just hiding or you're just masking behind a social media platform or a digital platform. And see, like I always say, practice makes perfect. So if you keep on hiding behind social media to meet new people, or if you keep hiding behind digital platforms in order to conversate with people, I feel like at the end of the day, you're never going to learn how to have a proper face to face conversation with a person. And let's be real, that is absolutely important that you move out of your comfort zone and you learn how to conversate with people face to face, physically be present instead of always scrolling through social media. So, that is again another thing that we tend to do with regards to social media. Of course, it affects a lot of our sleep. Research shows that a lot of us are losing our sleep because of social media, and that causes a negative psychological arousal before sleep, which basically results in very very disturbed sleep or very bad sleeping patterns. Now, I know that you are probably not a stranger to sleeping late because of social media. You set yourself a time and then you start scrolling and you don't even know it's been an hour, it's been 2 hours, and finally you barely get enough sleep to function the next day. That is yet another negative impact of social media. And the other thing I do want to talk about is self-esteem. See, when you use social media, especially if you're not wise enough, especially if you're not, how would I say, strong enough to understand that everything you see on social media is not true, especially if you are a teenager, especially if, you're still learning, then when you see things on social media, you tend to believe that it's true. So basically, we see things on social media, we see models, we see actresses, we see pictures and influencers or whatnot, and we tend to believe that that's what's real. And a lot of people, I feel like, are affected by this perceived reality of social media, and we believe that, oh, this is how we need to look, or this is what we need to do in order to fit in or be cool or whatever it is. And social media has set this rhythm in society that is absolutely not true. Now, with all of these being said, I feel like I did speak to you about the negative impacts of social media. But I also want to remind you, if you want to find an answer to the question, does social media do more good than harm? Well, then, guess what? You need to look at yourself first. You need to ask yourself, Am I a wise user? Do I use social media with care? Do I know how to use social media wisely? Now, I do want to tell you why social media is actually good. I've told you how it can impact you negatively, but there's so much good that comes out of social media as well. And I want to teach you how to use social media in a good way. Now, we'll be talking about that right up next. So make sure that you keep it tuned right here on Relax Radio.